everyone. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson University Office of Public Relations, and this is The View from the Hill, the podcast of Lindsey Wilson University. Every week during the academic year, The View from the Hill features conversations with some of the people who help create the dynamic living, learning environment that serves the educational needs of every Lindsey Wilson student every day. In the seventh edition of the podcast of the 2025-2026 school year, we'll chat with School of Arts and Humanities Dean Allison Smith. She's going to tell us all about Arts and Humanities Month at Lindsey Wilson. October is a big month for Lindsey Wilson's School of Arts and Humanities because that's when the school is celebrating National Arts and Humanities Month. The person behind the celebration is English professor Allison Smith. She's also dean of the university's School of Arts and Humanities. Allison will tell us all about some of the events being held throughout the month of October at Lindsey Wilson. She'll also tell us about Lindsey Wilson's School of Arts and Humanities, which is one of the university's more vibrant schools. First of all, though, Allison will tell us what Arts and Humanities Month is all about.
So every October, the Americans for the Arts, that's a national organization, they host a National Arts and Humanities Month initiative. And so that's the nation's largest annual celebration of arts and culture. And so their initiative honors veterans, artists, educators, leaders whose creativity strengthens democracy and community. So we really liked their initiative. We were really inspired by it. So we started our own in 2019. And that was with Dr. Kara Mollis, who was our inaugural dean of our school. She started the initiative. And so the two of us, Kara and I, came up with the idea in 2019 to send a poem out for every day of Humanities Month. We just came up with it in her office one afternoon. And, we decided, okay, we'll just do it. Nobody will care or pay attention. I don't even think we asked anybody's permission. We just did it. And it completely took off in ways that we couldn't anticipate. It took off because the emails just kept coming in about the poems. People hadn't seen anything like that. They hadn't gotten poetry in their inbox like that. And so people were really inspired by it. And then people were really irritated by it too. And so that created an interesting conversation. But the main thing, if you knew Carrie, you knew that she loved conversation. She loved when things came to a point of tension and you could talk about why is this poem making you uncomfortable? And so that really started us out, and so we've expanded since then. That's what really started the conversation.
Allison, talk a little bit more about why the arts and humanities are important, not just to the English or history major at Lindsey Wilson, but also to a Lindsey Wilson student who majors in, say, nursing or maybe business.
Mm-hmm. Most people think of the humanities as dying, but on Lindsey's campus, that's what sort of gives us life. It's sort of the lifeblood of our campus, from our plays to our art gallery, to our poetry readings, to our scholarly journals. It's sort of the lifeblood of our campus. Sports are too, and sciences are as well. But the arts are what a lot of times students get really excited about. So even if a student doesn't officially enroll in a humanities major, it doesn't mean they're not engaging with the humanities. Every student at Lindsey has to take some general education humanities courses, like English, art appreciation, survey of musical masterworks, women and gender studies. And so what we hear from our students oftentimes is that's their favorite classes or their favorite professors. It's not necessarily the classes they were excited to take, but they became excited while taking them. And so when they leave, they say that those are the classes, those are the experiences, those are the faculty that have really changed their lives. We also have things like Study Abroad, our Study Abroad program that Dr. Carolyn Steffens, Dr. Rachel Carr, Professor Robert Brock, they're currently working on a trip to Ireland right now that we're very excited about. A theater and English class that's cross-listed. They're taking about 25 students to Ireland, and most of those are not humanities majors. I'd say about half of them are. So that's a way that students can be engaged with the humanities, but maybe they're not a humanities major. We also have students who are in singers, right? And that's a very robust program. So students love to get involved with the humanities. I think it can really expand students' experiences in ways they weren't anticipating.
We have some great calendars posted all around campus advertising some of the events taking place during Art and Humanities Month. Give us some idea of some of the events that are taking place this month at Lindsey Wilson.
Yeah, so since we started out in 2019, just one email a day, we've gotten a little more complex since then. We've added things like readings, movie nights, speakers, live music. We've added giveaways, club meetings, brown bags, workshops, and still emails that irritate people. We still send those. But our theme this year, if you've seen the calendar, it's very dynamic. And the theme this year is revolutions, the movements that make us. And so we were really taken with the history program this year. They're gearing up for the 250th anniversary of America's independence next year. And so we were already talking about that. But Dr. Lucas Summers, our Americanist in history, brought up the fact, he said, well, in 1775, the rebellion and revolution was well in hand, coming to its peak. And so that got us all thinking, okay, well, the independence came, in 1776, but what was happening in 1775? A lot of disruption. And so we were interested in that. That is a well-known rebellion, right, that definitely made a country. But there are other movements not as large, like suffrage, that really impacted our culture in America, giving women the right to vote. Things like Woodstock, that was a revolution in a way, and it changed our culture. So we're interested in looking at lots of different types of revolutions. Some are very bloody and violent, like the American Revolution, and some were focused on music and peace, like Woodstock. So you'll see a lot of different things that reflect those ideas. We have a historical talk called History versus Broadway, rather than History versus Hollywood, which is our normal shtick. But this time it's History versus Broadway because Dr. Summers is looking at Hamilton, the Disney production of Hamilton, the Miranda telling, and how that compares to actual history. So that's one of our events. We have another movie night closer to the end of the month. It's a showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show with a costume contest as well. So like really two sides of the coin there. A very historical film and then one that's just for fun, but in ways both are about rebellion and revolution, really. So that's kind of two sides of the coins. They're similar with music. We have a very buttoned up concert on October 19th with a classical concert, but then on the 24th we have a community hootenanny. So that will be an engaging event with faculty, staff, and students in the band room. So the whole range of experiences on our calendar, I think.
You're listening to the Lindsey Wilson View from the Hill podcast. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson Office of Public Relations. I'm talking to Lindsey Wilson School of Arts and Humanities Dean Allison Smith. She's telling us all about Arts and Humanities Month celebrations at Lindsey Wilson. To read more about Arts and Humanities Month at Lindsey Wilson, check out the news story on the Lindsey Wilson website. To find that, point your internet browser to lindsey.edu/news. Now let's get back to my conversation with School of Arts and Humanities Dean Allison Smith.
The School of Arts and Humanities is home to 9 of the university's 29 undergraduate majors. And if you're keeping score at home, that's art, arts administration, English, history, interdisciplinary studies, political science, Spanish, theater, and women's and gender studies. Allison, as you mentioned earlier, all of those programs help form really what's the backbone of Lindsey Wilson's academic experience, and they're also very strong majors in their own right. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, we have a solid percentage of students who major just in the humanities. So about 1 in 10 Lindsey Wilson student is a humanities major standalone. So that's about 150 students that major with us. And those are some of our strongest students. But we also have even more students who like to double major or minor with us. And the reason that students like to do that is because they find it really fleshes out their science or maybe their business background. When they apply to business school, medical school, they really want to be seen as a full human being. And so a lot of them like to double major or minor in a humanities. For instance, We've had nursing students who like to minor in women and gender studies. Those dovetail really nicely together. And so that helps them be stronger nurses. We feel like it prepares them in ways, not that nursing doesn't prepare them, but it adds an additional layer to prepare them for their career. But we have really excellent standalone majors who go on to do amazing things. We've had our graduates get accepted straight into PhD programs, into Ivy League law schools, art and design schools, gone into the armed forces. We've had multiple graduates who've started very successful businesses. And so they've gone on to win teaching awards, humanitarian awards. It's because they've studied under excellent faculty. They've taken great classes that have instructed them not only in the classics, but cutting edge scholarship and theory.
And as you mentioned earlier, too, there are so many opportunities for students in arts and humanities to be involved in co-curricular activities. There are research programs, there are conferences, literary journals that almost supercharges their experience.
Yes, like the study abroad trip for Ireland, that's tied to a course. So they'll go to Ireland, but like you said, it's going to supercharge this class, and it'll be unlike any trip they've ever taken before because they're studying the places, the work that they're reading. Same thing with Orpheus, our literary journal. You know, it's one thing to study poetry in a class. It's another to work on a literary journal, have your own work published, edit the work of others, and then help produce a printed edition that then is disseminated and marketed. So then that prepares our students. Caitlin Freeney, one of our graduates, she's gone on to work for the American Printing House for the Blind. And so our graduates are very prepared for that type of work because of these supercharged experiences that you described. They've got that real hands-on experience. Another thing I would add about the humanities that I've seen English and history and political science do in ways that were just unexpected is they've developed these professionalization workshops for our graduates, but they open it up to the entire college community. So you'll see on our calendar, we had one on Tuesday. It was an academic roundtable. But what those professionalization workshops do is it helps students feel prepared for the market that they're going out into, whether that be the workplace or graduate school. And so those are services that we don't just offer our majors, we open those up to the entire community. And so Matt Powers has been doing that. The history program, Caleb Whittam, Beth Tapscott, they've been doing that. Carolyn Steffens, Rachel Carr, Kendall Sewell, they've been doing that with English. And so that's a way to really give our students a leg up, not just our majors, but any Lindsey Wilson student that wants to come to those talks.
You mentioned earlier the late Kara Mollis, who was an English professor and the first dean of the School of Arts and Humanities. She was also responsible for starting what's become a great academic conference every spring at Lindsey Wilson. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Kara, when she came to Lindsey Wilson, we had a very small women and gender studies program. And she saw promise there, and so she wanted to develop it first into a robust minor, which she did, and then she paired it with Women's Student Union, which blew up in a good way. It really took off on our campus. And so then Kara said, okay, let's do a major, and we can do it. And so we created the Women and Gender Studies major. And so really she felt that we should be a beacon of scholarship and output for the region. And so that's why we developed the conference. And at first we said, oh, should we invite more students to come in other schools? And Kara said, no, our students are strong enough to carry this on their own. Their work is strong enough. But what we did do is open it up to the entire college community. So what you'll find at the conference, which has grown, each year it's gotten bigger and bigger. Panels are larger. We've added more panels. If Kara was alive today, she would be stunned at the concurrent sessions that are happening, the attendance of people at the brown bags, at the round tables. I don't think she could have imagined that. But we know it's her, right, paying those dividends in. But the conference has really grown into this interdisciplinary experience where each panel is focused on different areas. So you'll have a creative panel. That was one I did this year, and I think you were there, Dwayne. Some excellent poetry was read at that. I mean, really mind-blowing pieces informed by thoughtful scholarship experiences. But then in other panels, it's focused on the AIDS crisis, right? The AIDS epidemic, on health deserts for women, reproductive rights, and those issues. We have focused on women business leaders, and we've partnered with communication, the program there with Jennifer Firkin has been excellent to teach some classes for us in the Women and Gender Studies program, and their students come and they present. And so it's just grown in ways that we couldn't anticipate. But that's all because of Kara. It's because of her forethought. She saw what no one else saw, and we're still benefiting from that.
Allison, you've been part of Lindsey Wilson for 2 decades, give or take. You also grew up in South Central Kentucky, not too far from the campus of Lindsey Wilson, now University. Would you say this is the most exciting time to be part of the Lindsey Wilson community in terms of your association with the university?
Yes, I've never seen anything like it. It's contagious right now, infectious. When you get on campus, you don't want to leave. There's such a great energy. I've seen more initiatives, more excitement in the last 2 to 3 years than I have in the last 17 to 18 years. We've seen our mural go up, our campus mural. You did an episode on that earlier this season. Danny did an amazing job. Danny Ford did an amazing job on that. Our faculty is the strongest we've ever had. The PhDs that we have amassed from across the country and from some regions of the world. I was talking to a local guidance counselor yesterday that had a group on campus, and they just couldn't believe how we've grown over the last 5 years or so. And I talked about how students, even if you're a local student like I was, and you're interested in Lindsey Wilson, you're going to have a global experience, more of a global experience than you would ever have if you went to University of Kentucky or University of Louisville, because you have one-on-one faculty who want to take you through those experiences. So they want to see you study abroad. They want to see you published in a journal. They want to see you go to an academic conference. They want to see you prepared for the workplace. They want to see you get into law school. They want those things for you. And so that's what we have amassed over the last few years, and we are at peak performance right now is what we're seeing. And I think a lot of that has to do with our leadership. They're open. It's just an open mentality. The best idea wins. People are willing to try different things. We're considering lots of different majors right now that are outside of the box. And we're just really excited that we have the support of the administration, but that we have a faculty that are the engine of this energy.
That's School of Arts and Humanities Dean Allison Smith. To read more about Arts and Humanities Month at Lindsey Wilson, be sure to check out the news story in the news section of the Lindsey Wilson website, and that URL is lindsey.edu/news. And that's going to do it for this 7th edition of The View from the Hill for the 2025-2026 school year. You can tell us what you like or don't like about this podcast by firing off an email to us, and you can address that to news@lindsey.edu. Be sure to put podcast in the subject line. Also, be sure to encourage your friends, family members, co-workers, and neighbors to subscribe to A View from the Hill. They can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on the college's YouTube channel. View from the Hill was produced by Shelby Burton. She's Lindsey Wilson's Assistant Director of Public Relations and Media Producer. And until our next edition, I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson Office of Public Relations. Thanks so much for listening. So long, everybody, and have a nice day.